You know that feeling, right?
Yeah.
That slow creep of dread in a movie, maybe a masked figure just at the edge of the light.
Uh-huh.
Or that drawn-out silence that just screams something's about to happen.
Yeah, definitely.
If that gets under your skin, well, then you've already felt the pull of the 70s and 80s horror films. Welcome to the Deep Dive.
Hi there.
Today, we're plunging into that iconic era of scary movies, the ones that truly defined what horror could be and still have us peeking through our fingers.
And that's exactly what we're here to explore with you. You want to understand why these films, continue to hold such a powerful place in our imaginations.
Right.
Well, we've sifted through some fascinating material to bring you the key insights. Consider this your shortcut, maybe, to understanding the enduring impact of these classics.
Okay, let's really unpack what made the 70s and 80s so transformative for horror. The article we've been looking at makes it clear this wasn't just about a few jump scares.
No, not at all.
These decades really dialed up both the visceral, kind of gut-level terror and that more insidious psychological fear, the kind that can linger with you for days. What do you see as the initial catalyst for this shift?
Well, what's striking from the source
Mm-hmm.
is how early films like The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, that was 74, really just ripped up the rule book.
Ripped it up. How so?
It presented this raw, almost documentary-style depiction of horror, focusing on the vulnerability of the victims and this sense of just inescapable dread. You see a move away from like the more traditional monster movies towards something far more grounded and disturbing. It definitely set a precedent, I think, for a more intense and unsettling kind of filmmaking that, subsequent movies would build upon.
It's almost like it opened the door for something like John Carpenter's Halloween in 1978. That film feels like such a pivotal moment.
Absolutely pivotal.
Michael Myers, the seemingly emotionless, unstoppable force of evil.
Yeah.
What was it about him that resonated so deeply, do you think?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, Halloween, masterfully built suspense through suggestion and atmosphere.
Right, the atmosphere is key.
Carpenter's minimalist score is almost a character in itself, creating this constant sense of unease.
That theme, yeah.
And the innovative use of the first-person perspective, especially in that opening sequence. It immediately puts you in this voyeuristic, really unsettling position. The article highlights how this film essentially codified many of the tropes we now associate with slasher films.
Right, the final girl, the silent killer.
Exactly. But it did so with a level of artistry that really elevated the genre beyond simple shock value. It established a standard that filmmakers would strive for.
And then the 80s came along and seemed to just explode with even more iconic villains.
Right.
Friday the 13th in 1980 introduced Jason Voorhees, and it really tapped into that primal fear of the unknown lurking in seemingly safe, isolated spaces like summer camps.
Right, the camp setting.
How did Jason build on or maybe differ from the kind of horror Michael Myers represented?
That raises an interesting question, actually, about the evolution of the slasher archetype. Michael Myers was this almost spectral embodiment of evil, right? Silent, relentless.
Yeah, almost supernatural.
Jason, though, brought a more physical, brutal presence.
Yeah.
The source material suggests that Friday the 13th perhaps played on a different set of anxieties, the vulnerability of youth.
Teenagers.
The consequences of past transgressions, maybe, and the fear of a more tangible, albeit still seemingly indestructible threat. It's a shift towards a more direct and often gorier form of terror while still maintaining that sense of relentless pursuit.
More visceral, maybe?
Yeah, you could say that.
Yeah.
Definitely more graphic in many ways.
And then Wes Craven throws this massive curveball with A Nightmare on Elm Street in '84, Freddy Krueger. Talk about a villain who gets under your skin in a whole new way.
Oh, completely different.
Invading your dreams. I mean, that concept just eliminates any sense of safety, doesn't it? The supernatural element really amplified the psychological horror.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Freddy Krueger was a significant departure. Unlike the more silent stalkers, he had this distinct personality, a really twisted sense of humor.
Yeah, the one-liners.
And his ability to attack you in your dreams just blurred the lines between consciousness and the subconscious. The article points out how this introduced this whole new layer of psychological vulnerability
Right.
you could never truly escape because sleep, normally a refuge, became the battleground. These films of the 80s really took the foundations laid in the 70s and pushed them into new and often very imaginative territories.
It's wild to think about the creative minds behind these nightmares. John Carpenter, Wes Craven, Sean S. Cunningham. These names are practically legendary in horror.
Pillars of the genre.
And of course, Jamie Lee Curtis became such an iconic scream queen. What do you think made their contributions so significant and lasting?
Well, what's fascinating here, and what the source emphasizes, is that their impact wasn't solely about generating scares. They tapped into something deeper within the cultural consciousness. These films, while offering intense entertainment, also subtly reflected the societal anxieties of the time.
Like what kind of anxieties?
Well, think about the unease of the post-Vietnam era, anxieties surrounding social order, maybe evolving fears about technology or just the unknown. Horror often serves as this distorted mirror, reflecting our collective fears and uncertainties.
Interesting.
And these filmmakers were just adept at harnessing those underlying anxieties and translating them into compelling cinematic narratives. They also weren't afraid to experiment, with cinematic language and push the boundaries of what could be shown on screen.
Here's where it gets really interesting, I think. The article we looked at highlighted some surprising facts, especially when you consider the financial realities.
Well,
Halloween, this incredibly influential film we've been talking about, was made for, what, a mere $300,000.
incredible, isn't it? Just tiny by today's standards.
And it went on to gross over $70 million worldwide. That's just a staggering return and really underscores the power of ingenuity over massive budgets, wouldn't you say?
It's a powerful example, absolutely. It shows how a strong creative vision and innovative storytelling can overcome limited financial resources.
Hmm.
They didn't rely on elaborate special effects.
Right.
Instead, they focused on building atmosphere, generating suspense through pacing and framing, and crafting a compelling narrative.
Yeah.
It's a testament to the core principles of filmmaking and maybe a valuable lesson for anyone in a creative field.
And this is just a fantastic little detail that the article pointed out. The iconic, terrifying mask of Michael Myers.
Yeah.
It was a repurposed William Shatner mask. They just modified it, painted it white, teased the hair, widened the eye holes to make it more blank and unsettling.
That detail perfectly illustrates the resourcefulness, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The creative problem-solving inherent in low-budget filmmaking.
So,
They took something familiar, something as innocuous as a celebrity mask, and through subtle modifications, transformed it into an unforgettable icon of terror. It speaks to the power of suggestion and the audience's imagination filling in the blanks.
it really does. And what's truly remarkable is how these films, even without the sophisticated CGI we see in modern horror, still connect with contemporary audiences.
It-
My own kids, right? They've grown up with incredibly realistic visual effects, but they can still appreciate the tension and suspense in these older classics. Why do you think that enduring appeal exists across generations?
Well, if we connect this to a broader understanding of storytelling, I think these films understood that true horror isn't solely reliant on spectacle or, just jump scares.
Right, it's deeper than that.
They focused on developing characters, even if sometimes simple archetypes, building a sense of dread through atmosphere and pacing and crafting narratives that tapped into universal human fears. Those elements are timeless. Modern audiences, perhaps even experiencing a saturation of CGI-heavy films, can appreciate the artistry and the deliberate craftsmanship that went into creating fear through more traditional cinematic techniques. There's a palpable sense of tension that relies on more than just something suddenly leaping out at you.
So, for you out there listening, maybe you've never seen these classics or you're thinking about revisiting them. What are some ways to really engage with them and appreciate what made them so special? The article we looked at had some excellent suggestions.
Absolutely. Creating the right viewing environment, for starters, can significantly enhance the experience.
Like dimming the lights?
Yeah, dimming the lights, minimizing distractions, it allows you to become more immersed in the film's world and pay close attention to the soundtrack. The music in these films is often incredibly effective at building suspense and foreshadowing danger.
Oh, that iconic Halloween theme. It's instantly recognizable and still manages to send a shiver down my spine. It's so simple, yet so effective.
Precisely. Yeah. And take the time to appreciate the practical effects. Before the prevalence of CGI, filmmakers had to be incredibly inventive with makeup, prosthetics, set design, all that stuff to create believable and terrifying visuals.
True.
It's a different kind of artistry, a more tactile and often more visceral approach. Exploring behind-the-scenes stories and documentaries can also add another layer of appreciation.
Oh, yeah, the making ofs.
Right, giving you insight into the challenges they faced and the ingenious solutions they devised. And of course, discussing these films with fellow fans, hearing different interpretations and perspectives, can really enrich your understanding and enjoyment.
The article even mentioned some more outside-the-box ways to engage, like watching with a director or actor commentary. That sounds like an amazing way to get insights you wouldn't normally pick up on just watching the movie.
It really is. It's like getting a film school masterclass disguised as entertainment.
Ah,
And hosting themed movie nights complete with related snacks and decor maybe can be a really fun way to bring these films to life and share the experience with friends, making it more interactive and memorable for everyone involved.
so if we had to distill it all down for everyone listening, what's the key takeaway here? What's the enduring legacy of these 70s and 80s horror classics that you should really remember?
I think the enduring quality of these films lies in their ability to continue captivating new audiences and their profound influence on generations of filmmakers.
Right.
They demonstrated that genuine tension, well-developed characters, even for archetypal, and carefully constructed storytelling can be far more effective and lasting than, say, relying solely on graphic violence or cheap jump scares. Their legacy is evident in the countless films that have drawn inspiration from their techniques and their understanding of how to truly unsettle an audience.
Right. These aren't just dusty relics of a bygone era. They're foundational texts for the horror genre, really. They tapped into the anxieties of their time, fears about societal breakdown, the loss of innocence, the nature of evil.
Exactly.
And in many ways, those underlying anxieties still resonate, albeit perhaps in different forms today.
Exactly right. They are more than just scary movies. They are cultural touchstones that offer a fascinating glimpse into the fears and fascinations of the 70s and 80s and continue to inform how we understand and experience horror today.
That's a really compelling thought to consider, how those anxieties from the 70s and 80s might still echo or perhaps have drastically shifted in the kinds of fears we see reflected in contemporary horror. It's definitely something for you to mull over.
Hmm.
And if you want to delve even further into this nostalgic world of scares, be sure to check out that Movie Night Nostalgia YouTube playlist. It's a fantastic resource for more classic horror goodness.
Absolutely. It's been a truly insightful journey revisiting this terrifyingly terrific era with you.
Thanks so much for joining us on this deep dive into the golden age of horror. Until our next exploration, try to keep the lights on.